My name is Claire Bennett. I'm 29 years old, and I live in a quiet suburb just outside Denver, Colorado. 3 months ago, I walked into my own kitchen and drank a cup of coffee that was supposed to kill me. I didn't die that morning, but I came close. Close enough that the doctors later told my husband they weren't sure I would ever wake up. I spent 11 days in a coma. My organs started shutting down one by one. And when I finally opened my eyes, the detective standing at the foot of my hospital bed told me something that ripped the ground out from under me. This wasn't food poisoning. This wasn't a stomach bug. Someone in my own home had been slowly poisoning me for months. And when I finally learned who it was, I couldn't breathe. My whole body just froze. Before I tell you the full story, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. It means more to me than you know. Now let me take you back to where it all started. Life had felt almost too perfect before everything fell apart. I was a second-grade teacher at a small elementary school in Lakewood. I loved my job. I loved my students. My husband, Daniel, and I had been married for 4 years. We had a little boy named Owen who had just turned 3, and he was the light of our whole world. Daniel worked as an architect downtown. He left early every morning and came home by 6, and every single night, without fail, he would carry Owen around on his shoulders while I finished making dinner. We were planning to try for a second baby. We had just finished painting the spare bedroom a soft yellow, thinking it could be a nursery one day. That's how happy we were. That's how normal our lives felt. But about 6 months ago, everything started to change. It started small. I began feeling tired all the time. Not the normal tired of a working mom, but a deep, bone-heavy exhaustion that no amount of sleep could fix. I started getting headaches that lasted for days. My stomach would cramp up after meals. Some mornings, I couldn't even stand up without feeling dizzy. I went to my doctor. She ran blood tests. Everything looked fine. She told me I was probably just stressed, maybe anemic, and she prescribed some vitamins. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? I had no reason to think anything else was wrong. Daniel was worried about me. He kept bringing it up. "Honey, you've lost weight," he said one night while I was lying on the couch. "You need to eat more. You need to rest." His eyes were full of concern. He started taking over more of the housework. He'd cook dinner when I couldn't stand long enough to chop vegetables. He'd give Owen his bath at night. He'd rub my feet while we watched TV, telling me I was pushing myself too hard. Looking back now, I remember thinking how lucky I was. How many women had husbands like this? How many men actually noticed when their wives were struggling? I thought I had hit the jackpot when I married him. I had no idea that while he was being the perfect husband in every visible way, there was something rotting underneath all of it, something I couldn't see, something I never would have believed even if someone had whispered it in my ear. My mother-in-law, Patricia, had moved in with us about 4 months before I got really sick. She was 62 and had recently lost her husband, Daniel's father, to a sudden heart attack. She had nowhere to go, and her house was too big for her alone. Daniel told me she needed family right now, and I agreed without hesitation. I loved Patricia, or at least, I thought I did. She had always been warm to me. She baked cookies for Owen. She folded the laundry while I was at work. She insisted on making breakfast for everyone every morning, coffee for Daniel and me, oatmeal for Owen, fresh fruit on the side. It felt like a blessing to have her in the house. Patricia was the kind of woman who seemed to know exactly what everyone needed before they did. If I mentioned I was tired, she'd appear with a cup of tea. If Owen was fussy, she had him laughing in minutes. She watched me eat every morning with these soft, patient eyes, waiting until I finished my coffee before clearing the table. I used to think it was sweet. Now I know what she was really watching. By the time summer came, I could barely function. I had to take a leave of absence from the school. My hair was falling out in the shower. My nails had turned brittle and yellow. I had lost almost 25 pounds in 3 months. My skin had a gray tint to it, and the dark circles under my eyes looked like bruises. I went to 3 different doctors. They ran every test imaginable. No one could tell me what was wrong. One specialist even suggested it might be psychological, that maybe I was experiencing some kind of depression or anxiety disorder. I remember crying the whole drive home that day because I started doubting myself. Maybe I was just weak, maybe I was imagining it. Maybe there really was nothing wrong with me, and I was just falling apart for no reason. Patricia was the only one who seemed to really understand. She'd sit beside me on the bed and hold my hand. "Sweetheart," she'd say, "you just need rest. Your body is telling you to slow down. Let me take care of you. Let me take care of Owen. You focus on getting better." And every morning, she'd bring me that coffee. Always with a little sugar, the way I liked it. Always with a gentle smile. The morning it almost killed me started like any other. I woke up feeling worse than usual. My chest hurt. My vision was blurry. Daniel had already left for work. Owen was downstairs with his grandmother, watching cartoons. I dragged myself out of bed and went to the kitchen. Patricia was already there, humming a little song as she stirred a pot of oatmeal. "Good morning," she said cheerfully. "I made your coffee just the way you like it." She handed me the mug. I remember the way she watched me take the first sip. I remember thinking her smile looked a little different that day. A little too still. A little too focused. I drank half the cup before I started feeling sick. Really sick. My stomach twisted. My throat burned. The room started spinning. I tried to say something, but my words came out slurred. I dropped the mug. I saw it shatter on the tile floor. I saw Patricia's face. And I swear to you, in the half second before everything went black, I saw her smile. Not of shock, not of worry, of satisfaction. The next thing I remember is voices. Machines beeping. A light above me too bright to look at. I heard Daniel's voice crying somewhere close. "Please, please, wake up." I felt his hand gripping mine so tightly it hurt. I tried to speak, but I couldn't. I tried to open my eyes, but I couldn't. I drifted back into darkness. And I don't know how many times this happened, voices coming and going, before I finally came back for real. When I opened my eyes, I was in the intensive care unit at St. Joseph Hospital in Denver. Daniel was slumped in a chair beside the bed, unshaven, wearing the same clothes he had on the morning I collapsed. His face looked 10 years older. He was asleep, but the moment I shifted, his eyes flew open and he burst into tears. "Oh my God. Oh my God, Claire, you're awake. You're awake," he whispered over and over, pressing my hand to his lips. He pushed the call button. A nurse rushed in. Then a doctor. Then more nurses. They were checking my vitals, shining lights in my eyes, asking me what year it was and if I knew my name. I answered everything slowly. My voice felt like sand, but I was alive. The doctor, a kind woman named Dr. Rivera, sat down beside my bed once the chaos settled. "Claire," she said, "I need you to try to stay calm while I explain something to you." My heart started pounding before she even continued. "You've been in a coma for 11 days, she said. "Your organs were in the process of shutting down when your husband got you to the emergency room. We almost lost you 3 different times." I swallowed hard. "What happened to me?" I asked. She looked at Daniel. Then she looked back at me. "We found something unusual in your blood work, Claire. We found extremely high levels of thallium. And when we looked back at your medical records, we saw elevated levels going back at least 6 months." I didn't understand. I kept blinking at her. "What does that mean?" I whispered. She took a breath. "Thallium is a heavy metal," she said gently. "It's colorless, odorless, and tasteless. It used to be used in rat poison before it was banned. It doesn't appear in regular blood tests unless you specifically look for it." She paused. "Claire, you've been poisoned. Over a long period of time. This wasn't an accident. Someone has been doing this to you." I don't think I breathed for a full minute. My mind couldn't catch up with her words. Poisoned. Someone had been poisoning me. For 6 months. The room started spinning again. Daniel was crying beside me. "The police have been waiting to talk to you," Dr. Rivera said. "They opened an investigation the moment your blood work came back. They've already been to your house." Before I could respond, The door opened, and a man in a dark jacket walked in. He introduced himself as Detective Marcus Hayes from the Lakewood Police Department. He was tall, maybe in his 50s, with kind eyes and a gentle voice. "Mrs. Bennett," he said, "I know this is overwhelming. I just need to ask you a few questions while things are fresh." I nodded, because I couldn't speak. He asked me about my morning routine. He asked who prepared my food. He asked about my husband, my family, my home. I answered everything, but the whole time I kept shaking my head. "No one would do this," I said. "No one in my house would hurt me. My husband adores me. My son is 3. My mother-in-law has been taking care of me." The detective didn't respond to that right away. He just wrote things down. Then he looked up and said, "Mrs. Bennett, we need to go through everyone who had access to your food or drinks over the last 6 months. And I need you to understand, this kind of poisoning requires consistent exposure. Someone in your home, someone close to you, did this." That night after Daniel went home to check on Owen, I lay in that hospital bed staring at the ceiling. I thought about every meal I had eaten over the last 6 months. I thought about every cup of coffee, every glass of tea, every bowl of soup Patricia had made for me. I thought about how she always served me personally. How she watched me drink. How she'd refill my cup before I asked. I thought about Daniel, who had been asking me to go to better doctors. Who had been genuinely terrified as I got worse. Who had been giving his own blood for me at the hospital, according to the nurses. Who hadn't left my side for 11 days. I couldn't believe he had anything to do with this. And then I thought about Patricia. Patricia, who had moved into our house 4 months before I got truly sick. Patricia, who controlled every meal in our kitchen. Patricia, who had a strange, cold quality I had always brushed off as grief from losing her husband. I started remembering little things. The way she looked at Owen sometimes, like he belonged to her more than to me. The way she'd correct me in front of Daniel, just slightly, just enough. The way she'd mention other women from Daniel's past, saying things like, "Rachel was always such a wonderful cook. Daniel really loved her biscuits," just little jabs I had ignored. I started crying. But I didn't say anything to Daniel yet. I didn't want to believe it. I needed proof. The next morning, my own mother came to the hospital. Her name is Linda. She lives in Boulder, about 40 minutes away. She had been at the hospital every day during my coma, according to Daniel, but I hadn't seen her since I woke up. She walked in and burst into tears the moment our eyes met. She held me and rocked me like I was a little girl again. "Mom," I whispered. "Mom, something's wrong. Something's really wrong." She pulled back and looked at me. "I know, sweetheart," she said. "I know." And then her face hardened. "I want to tell you something, Claire," she said quietly. "But I don't want you to react until I finish." I nodded. She took a breath. "I never trusted Patricia," she said. My heart started pounding. "Why?" I asked. She sat down on the edge of the bed. "When your father-in-law died last year," she said, "I went to the funeral with you. Do you remember?" I nodded. I remember the way she behaved. I remember how she stood at that casket. There was no grief in her face, Claire. None. I thought I was imagining it. But then about a week after the funeral, I ran into an old friend of hers at the grocery store. A woman named Marlene. She didn't know Patricia had moved in with you. She said something strange. She said, "I always wondered how Patricia's husband died so suddenly. He was in such good health." And she gave me this look, Claire. This look I couldn't shake. I tried to ignore it. I thought I was being paranoid. But after what the doctor told Daniel yesterday, I can't sit on it anymore. I want to tell the detective what Marlene said. I want them to look into it. Something inside me went cold, because suddenly I remembered something Patricia had said a few weeks ago. She had been going through old photo albums with Owen, and she had held up a picture of Daniel when he was a baby. "That was after I lost my first," she had said softly, almost to herself. Owen had asked, "What first, Grandma?" and she had just smiled and said, "Nothing, sweetheart, it's nothing." I told my mother about it. Her face went pale. "Claire," she whispered, "I think this woman has done this before. I asked her to call Detective Hayes. He came to the hospital that afternoon. We told him everything. About Patricia's husband. About the strange comment. About the fact that Patricia had been the primary preparer of all my food for months. He listened carefully and wrote everything down. Mrs. Bennett, he said, I don't want to make any promises, but I'm going to look into this. In the meantime, I want you to know, we already pulled fingerprints and took samples from your kitchen. We should have results in the next few days. 2 days later, Detective Hayes came back. Daniel was with me. My mother was too. The detective sat down, and I could see in his eyes that something had changed. Mrs. Bennett, he said, we got the results. The poison traces we found were on a mug, on a kitchen towel, inside a tea tin we found at the back of your pantry, and inside a small container hidden in a shoebox in your mother-in-law's bedroom closet. Daniel's face went white. The container contained pure thallium powder. Detective Hayes said, there's no innocent explanation for having it. None. He paused. We also pulled Patricia Bennett's phone records and financial history. We found some very concerning things. She has been transferring money into a private account for the last year. She has emails with a real estate attorney about transferring custody of your son Owen to her in the event of your death. And, Mrs. Bennett, we found that she took out a life insurance policy on you 8 months ago, in her name as beneficiary. Without your knowledge, Daniel made a sound I'll never forget. A broken, choking sound. Like someone had punched the air out of him. He stood up, walked to the corner of the room, and threw up into a trash can. The detective continued. We're also reopening the case of your father-in-law's death, he said. His body is going to be exhumed next week. Based on what we've found here, we have reasonable grounds to believe he may have been poisoned too. I couldn't stop shaking. I kept asking myself the same question over and over. Why? Why would she do this? What did she want? Then Detective Hayes said the thing that answered everything. Mrs. Bennett, during her interview, your mother-in-law said something strange. She told us, and I'm quoting, that little boy is the last piece of my son I have. She's not well, he said gently. We believe she was planning to remove you and position herself as Owen's primary caregiver. Combined with the life insurance money, she would have had full access to your son and financial security for life. I turned my face into the pillow and sobbed. My son. She had been trying to take my son. Owen didn't even know what was happening. Owen, who kissed her cheek every morning. Owen, who thought Grandma made the best oatmeal in the world. Patricia was arrested that same afternoon at our home. Daniel went home to take Owen to his mother's, to my mother's house, in Boulder for a few days. I stayed in the hospital another week recovering. Detective Hayes kept us updated. The charges against Patricia kept growing. Attempted murder, aggravated assault, child endangerment, insurance fraud. And then, 3 weeks later, the forensic lab confirmed it. Patricia's husband had died of thallium poisoning too. She was charged with his murder. During the investigation, they also uncovered a timeline that made my stomach turn. Patricia had lost a baby daughter many years ago, before Daniel was born. She never recovered. According to a sister of hers who came forward, Patricia had become obsessive about Daniel her entire life. She had driven away 2 previous girlfriends of his before he met me. When he married me, she had apparently told her sister, Claire is going to take him away from me. I won't allow it. The trial lasted 6 months. I testified. So did Daniel. So did my mother. So did Patricia's own sister. Patricia sat there the whole time, never looking at me, never showing any emotion. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. She was convicted on all counts. For the attempted murder of me, and the murder of her husband, she was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. She will die behind bars. Her sister cried when the sentence was read. Daniel didn't. He just held my hand tighter. Coming home after all of that was strange. The house looked the same, the kitchen looked the same, but I couldn't walk into it without my whole body shaking. Daniel and I sold the house. We moved to a smaller place on the other side of town. We threw away every dish, every mug, every single thing Patricia had ever touched. Owen doesn't ask about Grandma much anymore. He's 4 now. When he does ask, we just say she had to go away. One day, when he's older, we'll tell him the truth. I've started seeing a therapist, so has Daniel. Some nights I still wake up tasting that coffee on my tongue, and I have to go splash cold water on my face to remind myself that I'm alive, that I'm safe, that the woman who did this can never touch me again. Our marriage has been tested in ways I never thought possible. Daniel carried so much guilt for not seeing what his own mother was doing. For a long time, he couldn't look at himself in the mirror. I had to remind him, over and over, that he was a victim too. That a woman like Patricia could fool anyone, including the son who loved her. We're rebuilding. Slowly. Carefully. There's one thing that still haunts me, though. The morning before I collapsed, Patricia had said something to me as I was leaving the kitchen. I only remembered it weeks later. She had said, "I really do love you, Claire." In her own way, maybe she thought she did. But love doesn't poison. Love doesn't scheme. Love doesn't take out insurance policies on the woman carrying your grandson. The person who tried to kill me wasn't a stranger. She wasn't a burglar. She wasn't someone from my past. She was the woman who had been sleeping in my guest room for 4 months. The woman who had been kissing my son goodnight. The woman I had trusted completely. And that betrayal is something I will carry with me until the day I die. If you're watching this right now, I want to leave you with something. Trust your body when it tells you something is wrong. Trust your instincts when something feels off, even when you can't explain why. And if the people closest to you make you feel like you're going crazy, please don't ignore that feeling. It might just save your life. Thank you for listening to my story. If it moved you, please like this video and share it with someone you love. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from, and whether you've ever had a moment where your instincts warned you before the truth came out. I read every single one. Stay safe out there, and remember, sometimes the most dangerous people in our lives are the ones already sitting at our kitchen table.